All right, good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just a little early, I'm just making sure everything is working properly and that the sound is transmitting. The training will last about an hour and a half, possibly a little over if I go back and forth or if I have slow load times. Please feel free to make use of chat and ask questions about any feature that I'm going over. I don't have problem obviously going backwards if I need to. If I happen to miss a question. We are here every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, at least for the most part. But let's go ahead and get started. So here we have our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. To log in, we need your email address, which would have been the one you used to sign up with us or that your admin used to create your user. Your password, which hopefully was emailed to you, and then the account name, right? That's typically your company name. Now, if for some reason you can't log in or you're having trouble remembering things like your password, down here towards the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have our forgot your info link. So you just click on that. It'll flip it around. We still need your email address, right? That's the primary identifier for who you are. And then we need one of the following two pieces of information, right? So either the account name, right? So a company name, or a phone number on the account, right? So one of the phone numbers your customers call to reach you. You would click on then reset password. This will send you an email. The email will have a link that lets you log in temporarily to change your password. It'll log you back out, take you back here to the login screen. So you can enter that new password, and then you also have the option then to click on Remember Me. And then we get signed in. Now, I'm using a test account that I have logged into several times, so it's going to take me here to my dash login page, or the dashboard page, excuse me. If it's your first time logging into Dash, then you're actually going to get taken to your account page, which you can always get back to by clicking on your name over here at the top right. And that, for instance, is where you would change your own password, right? As an admin, you can change everyone else's password via the Users tab, but for your own, you need to go here under your account page. Now, also as an admin, over here on the left under Settings, I have the account level settings. And typically what's changed here is either the language or the time zone, excuse me. Now, since this is a test account, I don't have everything that you have. For your customer accounts here, under where it says user, there'll be another section for billing information. And that's where you would change your credit card information. You could see your invoices. You could see your current plan, that sort of thing. And all right. Once you're done in here, go ahead and click on Close. And we'll be back here on the dashboard. Now, that first time logging in, right, you're going to have little pop-up boxes telling you what things are. So you can always read through those. But here in the middle, we have my total users. I have 17. Right? So these are people on my account who make and receive calls. Right? Then I have total devices. I have 36, and then a breakdown. Now, Dash was designed with VoIP phones in mind. So that's why this first one here is listed as a soft phone. Right? Soft phone, software application, uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. Right? Software phone. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app. It includes third-party apps if you're using someone else's app. All right, then we have the web phone. This uses Chrome or Firefox. This allows you to use Chrome and Firefox to make and receive calls on a computer. The mobile versions of those browsers are not supported. All right, cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. And then SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone, right? So it's a piece of hardware, sits on your desk. Cisco phones, Polycom phones, etc. Down here, I have unregistered devices. This is the system telling me that 3 of my SIP phones are not registered. That means they're not connected to us, right? There's no connection between us and your phones. That could be they're not plugged in. It could be something more complicated than that. All the system knows is we can't send calls to it. Right, total numbers, I have 31 phone numbers on my account. Now, most of our plans include anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, so I would be paying an overage. And the overage is based on per number, right? So I'm paying extra for 16 phone numbers at the very least. And then I have a breakdown here, assigned numbers and spare numbers, right? Assigned number, I'm using it, right? Someone can call that number and, get to a staff member or leave a voicemail or be sending a fax or be joining a conference, right? Spare number, it's on my account, so it counts towards my allotment. But I'm not currently using it. Right, this could just be I haven't, come across my need for it yet, or I'm about to expand to a new market, so I already got the phone numbers, I just haven't opened the new facility yet. Down here, I have US DID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? So 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently. US DID just means US local number. Right? So if you want a phone number, say in Anaheim, California, it would count as a US DID, right? Or wherever else in the United States. You can't have international phone numbers if you're inclined to do so. You will need to contact our porting team, which you can just email them at porting@virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. They will let you know if there are additional requirements, right? Those we get from those particular countries. Once those requirements are fulfilled, then we're able to get a number for you. All right, conference bridges. I have 2. That just means I've enabled the conference bridge feature on 2 of my users. So I have 2 people who can host or moderate a conference. Main numbers, these 4 phone numbers, these all behave the same way, right? They're all going to have the same main greeting. They're all going to the same location. Conference numbers, you can have multiple conference numbers if you're inclined to do so. But basically, this is the phone number everyone dials to get to the conference rooms, whether they're my staff members, my vendors, or my clients. The fax box number, this is your incoming fax number. Right, company directory, right? This downloads a CSV file where you can see your users' names, their extensions, and their devices. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You would download this file and then upload it to our soft phone app on your computer. And this will allow you to see the presence or the status of the other soft phones on your account. Right here, we have the store discount code. So just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount at our online store, right? store.virtualpbx.com. And then here we have the account realm, which is unique for each account. This allows you, or this is used in a couple things. First, if you're going to use a third-party soft phone application, it's one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to program that soft phone. If it's also used for sending a fax out. So on Dash, sending faxes out is via your email, right? So you create an email like normally. In the to field, +sign, number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, @ your account realm. And then you attach a TDF or TIFF and click send. Up here at the top, you have the company caller ID. This pull down would allow you to select any of your main numbers. And then you can input company caller ID name information. This lets you input up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. Then you have the company emergency information. So it just wants a North American address. And then you would click on Save Changes. You need to fill out both parts for you to be able to save changes. A couple things to know about company caller ID name. Once you click Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers that support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update their servers. It's not something we can control. However, and this is used for whenever your VoIP phones make an outbound call, right? So we send out the phone number, we send out the CNAME information. Not every carrier that your call goes through may support CNAME. Now, normally that's for small or regional carriers. So for most of the time, that's not a big issue. However, when you're calling cell phones, the cell phone carriers, they control what shows up on the cell phone's displays on their network, right? So they're the ones who put telemarketer or spam risk or whatever. For some of those companies, right, some cell phone carriers will not transmit CNAME information unless their subscriber is paying for it. So if you're calling someone who's not paying for that service on their cell phone provider, your company name information may not show up when you call them on their cell phone. All right, hold music. Now Dash defines hold music as after a call has reached a user and that user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when hold music will play. And on Dash, you can upload your own files. Just find a MP3, a .wav file, or a .ogg file. You want to make sure it's recorded in mono, not in stereo. And that it's under 1 megabyte in size. And you just click the up arrow icon and then save changes. Oh, I forgot the very top here. So as I mentioned before, you can click on your name to get to that account information. For many of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a Dnd toggle for do not disturb. So you can click on that so that way calls won't go to you. The reason I don't have the Dnd toggle on my user here is because my user is part of an Acdq. So once you are assigned to be a member of the Acdqs, you no longer have the Dnd toggle. Up here, the question mark icon, all right, help icon. Chat with us. This will open up a chat window at the bottom right. So then you can talk to a support team member. Down here, we have learn more. This will open a new tab and take you right to the support pages. Online store opens a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. And then the web phone, this one only shows up after you've added a web phone to your user. And then once you've done so, here, this will open up a new tab, take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net so you can log into the web phone. Here, we got the hamburger icon or the menu icon, all right, the 3 horizontal lines. This takes you to other parts of Dash. We are primarily going to be in the dashboard for the most of this training, but we will get to most of these others. And some do require either a different plan or upgrade fees, so I'll try to point those out. And then we have the logout icon. Okay, hours here is part of main number. So let's just go to main number. And the main number page can sometimes take a little bit to load. But here at the top, get your main company numbers. So these are my 4 main company numbers. You can have more or less than this. It's up to you. Now, if you need to add more numbers, you have 2 options. You can add from spare numbers, right? So these are the numbers you're not currently using. So you can put a check mark in front of one of them, for example, and add selected. So now I have that 402 phone number here. I can also buy new numbers, right? So numbers that are not already on my account. You have a choice of local and toll-free. Toll-free, pretty easy. Choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. Click search. And the system should show you what's available. You can scroll down to expand the list. Now, these lists are dynamic, meaning you're competing with people in real time. So you don't want to say add a number and then don't finish the process, right? If you walk away to go to lunch and come back, this number may not actually be available when you click on buy numbers. You can add multiple numbers at once, right? And then you would click on buy numbers. If we go back here to buy numbers for local, you need to know the area code. Now, in some instances, when you search an area code, you will get this message. That just means that area code is exhausted, meaning there's no numbers currently available in that area code. If you absolutely have to have a number in a particular area code, you can email our porting team and ask them to do a back order for a specific area code. You should know ahead of time, we cannot give you an ETN when we're going to get one. In fact, we can't even tell you if we will get one, because all we're waiting, when we do a back order for an exhausted area code, we're waiting for someone to give up a phone number, and then we try to get it. the other thing to do in that situation is look for an overlay area code or a nearby area code, right? So 310 is Los Angeles, so there's many area codes nearby, including 424, which is an overlay. And you can see I have numbers to choose from. And you would just click on add number and click on by numbers. Once you click on by numbers, the system is trying to acquire that number for you, right? It's verifying that it truly was available, then activates it, inputs it on your account, and here it is. Now, if I decide I no longer want to use a number as a main number, I can click unassign next to it. And in fact, I can do that to the one I just added. All right, so now I'm back down to 4. Now, those numbers I just unassigned, they're just spare numbers now. They're not removed from my account yet. You notice here, there's a little gear icon next to these phone numbers. This is where you would update the caller ID, right? So you can update the outbound caller ID for each number. And you can also choose to turn on the inbound CNAME information, right? So that way the information gets passed on to your users on their devices. Right, the E911, you can set up E911 for each of your phone numbers. This also then allows you to select which phone numbers your VoIP phones use for E911 purposes, right? So that way your staff members have the correct address associated with them. And then prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your users' VoIP phones. Right, gives them a heads up about what the call might be about. Once you have phone numbers, you can set up your office hours strategy. You can do 24-hour open office, right? You're open for business 24/7. Or you can do custom office hours. If you choose that, just for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark in front of that day. And then in these boxes to the right, you select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down here at the bottom, you have the option here to say you're closed for lunch. So if everyone goes to lunch at the same time, right, you can just click on the box here, and then you enter your lunch hours in 24-hour or military time. And then you would click on Save Changes. Next up, we have office holidays. So first question is, are you closed for holidays? If you are, put a check mark here. And then over here to the right, you click on where it says Add Holiday. You have single day, date range, and advanced. Right, single day, pretty easy. You give it a name, you select the month and the date, you click on Save Changes. Right, date range, give a name, start date, end date, click on Save Changes. We do have the caveat here that there's no year indicator here, so it's safest to not have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, which is why I have them separated here. That has in the past caused problems. It hasn't recently, but best to avoid that if possible. And then the advanced option is like I have here for Thanksgiving, right? Where I said, hey, the 3rd Thursday, November, right? So choose the month. This middle pull down is 1st through 5th as well as last, and then the day of the week. And then click on Save Changes. Okay, now under incoming call handling, right? This is how the system handles the calls that come in on your main numbers, right? So those 4 main numbers during my open hours or my after hours or my holidays. How do I want the system to handle these calls, right? So calls come in here under the first option, they're going to my virtual receptionist. This is where you would have a greeting play and you tell people to press different buttons to navigate through your phone system, right? So over here on the left, your main menu, right? This is the buttons people press. You click on Add Route. You have the default action, 0 through 9, and the star key that you can map out. And then you select where they're going. Right, and from here, Smart PBX directory, right, the dial by name directory, user directory. You can send a menu option to go to a specific person, right, so it'll ring their phones, / get to their voicemail. If you're making use of Acdqs, right, you can make a call queue an option here. You can send callers to a specific device. Now, the downside of that is if the device doesn't have its own built-in voicemail, right? So if it's not a cell phone, right? But if it's like a web phone, for example, it doesn't have its own built-in voicemail, then the caller can end up, just ringing forever until they hang up, and might get frustrated that they weren't able to leave a voicemail. Media file, that means you're playing a greeting, right? So you can play like your hours of operation or directions. Once the media file stops playing, the call ends. And groups are departments, right? Ring groups or hunt groups. So you're sending calls to multiple people. Advanced call flows, this would be if you're making use of submenuing. That means you'd have to have multiple auto attendants, which is a plan-specific feature. And then lastly, you can send callers to a particular voicemail box. Over here on the right, we have our greetings and your greeting options. First up, text-to-speech, right? You just type it in, click update, save changes. The system saves the file as, in this case, main open hours menu TTS, right? Because we're in our open hours. This is our main menu. You can have up to 250 characters in your text-to-speech greeting, not words, characters. It uses that computerized or robotic voice, so it's free. This is something I typically recommend if you're testing something, if you're new to PBX systems in general, or you're a startup, right? You're just like, hey, I'm not quite sure how everything's going to work yet. Text-to-speech is a good way just to get an idea of what's going on. Now, the system reuses the file name, right? So main open hours menu TTS. So you could have 5 different files with the same name, and you won't know the difference between the two, any of them, right? So my suggestion is when you use a text-to-speech greeting, after you click on update and save changes, go to the greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly. Find that file and rename it to something recognizable, right? Like main greeting 1 or main greeting and the date. Something that you'll know, oh, this is the one that sounded like this. And so you can go back to it if you need to. You can upload your own file, right? That .mp3, .wav, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Just find it on your computer and then update, save changes. You can choose from an existing recording, right? So here's that main open hours menu TTS file name. This pull down will show all of your greeting files, whether they're hold music, voicemail greetings, or main greetings. So thus you want to be able to name them so you can recognize them quickly. You can record a greeting over the phone. Now, by default, the system wants you to use a VoIP phone on the account. If, however, you want to use a cell phone or a landline, you want to go to your settings, and this one here, allow outside recording, you want to turn that on. Right? Default is off. That's why I said it wants to use a VoIP phone. Once you turn this on, that means you can use a cell phone or landline to call in and change your main greeting. Now, after that, you need to know the PIN number. Right? The PIN number is going to change from each time of day and for each account, in case you have multiple accounts with us. Now, what this means is when you call your main number, right? If you don't already have a greeting in place, the system will prompt you to enter the PIN number. It'll tell you that there's no greeting file for this menu. Please enter the PIN number. If you already have a greeting file in place, so let's say you started off with a text-to-speech greeting, and now you're like, okay, some of my customers have said that sounded weird, and they weren't sure they were calling the right place because they didn't hear your voice. So you want to call in and record a new greeting. So you call in to your main number. You hear the recording that's already in place, right? Or the text-to-speech greeting. You enter the PIN number, right? The system will recognize it and say, oh, they want to record a new greeting. And then they'll start walking you through how to record a greeting over the phone. Now, the system overwrites the existing greeting that's in place, right? So if greeting A was playing when you called in, you record a new greeting with your voice, greeting A now has your voice, right? That contact that was originally there is gone, and there's not a way to recover it. Professional recording services, when you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. And this is where you could order a new greeting from professional voice actors and actresses. Snap Recordings has something like 100 actors and actresses to choose from, different versions of English, Spanish, and French. They handle their own billing. They deliver to you via email, so then you would just upload the file. Settings. First up, actually the first two are somewhat related. Number of retries on missed dial and dialing timeout. So number of retries on missed dial, how many times the inbound caller can make a mistake. Right? So in this case, I'm saying 1. Right? They can make 1 mistake, so they get 2 attempts. Right? Dialing timeout is how much time the system listens to a button. How much time the system listens for additional button presses. Right? So in case you're entering multiple digit extensions. So let's say a caller comes in, they hear the main greeting, and they press 7. Right? Not a valid option under my main menu here. And let's say I don't have an extension 7. The system waits for a count of 5 to make sure there aren't additional digits that the customer is going to enter. It hits, so count to 5 hits. Then it replays the greeting, right? Because now it says, okay, they made a mistake. Let's give them their one retry. They hear the greeting. So they press 7 again for the second time with no additional digits afterwards. System still waits to 5, says, okay, there's no other digits. This is still wrong. And it goes through. It will then say, it'll play a message saying, we did not recognize your entry, and then does one of 2 things. If there's a default action in place, it will then transfer the caller to the default action. Right, so that's what I have right here. If I remove that, right, if there's no default action in place, then the system ends the call. So retry attempts, usually 2 to 3 is probably the most common that we see. Dialing timeout, it defaults to 10. I usually recommend it under 5, right? Anywhere from 2 to 5, typically fine. The allow outside recording, again, by default, this is off, and that's a security feature. So some random person can't call in, randomly figure out your PIN number, and then change your greeting on you, right? And then there's people who might do that on purpose. Allow dialing extensions, by default, this is on. And what that means is the system will listen for multiple digits. So if people know the extension number they reach, it will then transfer the call. If I turn this off, that means my inbound callers can only press a menu option. If they know the extension number, the system's not going to accept it. And then we have to suppress the playing of that invalid entry message. By default, it is off, right? So if you turn it on, that means you're not going to play the invalid entry message. Now, if you make any changes to your main menu, right, the button presses, your greetings or your settings, you need to click Save here. And it takes you back to your incoming call handling. And then you need to click Save Changes on the bottom right. All right. Now, you still have the similar options here for your after hours and holidays. Right. So if I go to after hours and if I go to the virtual receptionist, you'll see it's different menu options. You probably have a different greeting, etc. This second option here is a live operator answer option, right? So meaning you're trying to offer the call to someone first. If they're not able to pick up, then it goes to your virtual receptionist. This pull down starts off with your users, right? So a single individual. You can go to call queues, though, for multiple people. You can send it to a specific device, right? Specific phone, and it'll default to ring for 20 seconds. You can send it to a media file. This I don't recommend just because this will be confusing for your inbound callers, right? Because they'll hear initial greeting first. Sorry about that. Hopefully that will be done soon. So with the media file, right, they'll hear one media file play first, and then they'll get to your virtual receptionist and hear a second media file play, which can be confusing for people. Go down here. You have groups, which are, again, departments. You can send it to a secondary attendant if you have that on your plan. Right, but basically the idea is offer it, in this case, to Aaron. If he's not able to pick up, goes to the virtual receptionist. Third option, you see here it's skip to voicemail, but it's a pull down. So again, users, you can send it to groups, you can send it to queues, you can send it to a specific device, you can send it to a media file, etc. And then you send the caller to whichever voicemail box you want to send it to. This fourth option, this only shows up if you have multiple auto attendants available. So that's a plan-specific feature, and you've made them available in main menu. Commonly, what I see is for holidays is the skip to voicemail and goes to a voicemail box, and that's for like a seasonal business, especially, or like a small business for one person, shop saying, "Hey, we're going to Hawaii for a week." Now, again, remember, whenever you make changes to your virtual receptionist or anywhere here, right, you need to click Save Changes. Your main conference number, again, you can add from spare numbers, you can buy new numbers. You also have the ability to have your own text-to-speech greeting here. So you can say, thank you for joining ABC Cleaners Conference. The system without a greeting in place will say welcome to the conference and then prompt the caller to enter in the conference room number as well as the PIN number for that conference room. The main fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number. So if I didn't have one already assigned here, I would either add from spare numbers or buy new. And then you have the option here to edit the fax box. Now, this first field, all right, that's the inbound notification email. So whoever this is my email address, but whenever a fax comes in, right, I'm going to get an email saying, hey, you got a fax, and there'll be attachment so I can double click on it and view it. Now, if someone dials my fax box number, hears fax tones and hangs up, right, so they enter the wrong number, I'm still going to get an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, when you do have a legitimate failed inbound fax attempts, you probably want to contact the person faxing to you to see what error message they got on their side. Right? Their fax machine should print out something that said what happened. The email permissions, this is for outbound faxing. Right? Who are you allowing to fax out? This is designed to put in your company's email domain here. Right? So at abccleaners.com. Right? That way, every one of my staff members, they can send a fax out, even if they're not a user on my Dash account. And then you'll click on Save Changes. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, right? So available on some plans, not on others. The two most common use cases, the first is for submenuing. All right, so one for English, two for Spanish. Then you would create an English and Spanish auto attendant here and have, English and Spanish greetings, for example. And then the routing options, right, menu options would go to your English staff or your Spanish speaking staff. So up here at the top, you click on Add Attendant. You give it a name, you give it an extension number, you click on Create Attendant. The extension number, probably not going to be used by your customers, but can be used by your staff members to actually transfer calls, right, to the specific attendant. Once an attendant is created, you can click on its name. And then you have this ability here, is this one here, right? I have unavailable in main menu, meaning this is a standalone attendant, right? So this is a separate business, right? I can click on that, and now I can say it's available in main menu, click on Save Changes, and now it's going to be available as a menu option, right? So for submenuing purposes. So if we go down here to our Spanish one here, right, that one's available in main menu because it would be a submenu option. Now, auto attendants can have their own phone numbers. They can have multiple phone numbers if you want, right? So you can add from spare or buy new, right? You can click on the little gear icon here as well. As I said, the extensions are mostly for your staff members. If you want to change an extension number for any place, like a group or a user, I normally recommend you add the new extension number first and then unassign the original extension. Right, so add new, click save changes, click on it again, unassign the original. Now for your attendance, you just click on the little wrench icon here under settings, and it will expand out. And you see here, I have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? So those times or dates will match what we set up under the main menu. Right, so your auto attendants will have the same hours of operation as your main numbers. Now, you notice you only have the option here to go to a virtual receptionist. You don't have the other routing options that you do under the main number. And again, that's one of the limitations of the secondary attendants. But you can, again, you can add menu options. You can have their own greetings and their adjusted settings. And then you would click save and save changes. Devices tab shows all the devices on your account. Right, red means it's unregistered, so we can't send calls to it. In the case of a soft phone, right, this could be someone simply hasn't logged into it. Now they could have a network problem, right? Or they're, let's say if it's on their iPhone, maybe they turn their iPhone off, or the iPhone ran out of battery. Right? Green means it's registered, so we can send calls to it. And you can actually see this information change. Let's see if I can get. Oh, looks like mine isn't showing up on the screen. Oh, and then a black device, that means you've turned it off. Right? You can always click it on, and then it'll either go red to green, or red or green, excuse me. Up here at the top, add device. First up is SIP phone. Right, that's that physical VoIP phone sits on someone's desk. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some manufacturers have a lot of phones. Some, not as many. But basically what you want to do is look for the make and model of the phone that you want to work with. You give it a name, right? So Bob's phone. And then you need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone. Often there's a sticker on the back or the bottom of the phone that has that MAC address. If the phone's plugged in under the status or general settings, there's often a heading for MAC, right? So you'd enter that information here. You click on Create Device. After that, the only other thing you would need to do would be to assign that device to a user. And that's in terms of the dashboard, right? That's the only other thing you can do. However, you do need to access the phone's web user interface, the web UI, and there you need to enter in a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to get your config file. It will do so. It will typically reboot a couple times and then show up as a green device. For the specifics of that, you're going to want to go to our support pages, and you're looking for the guide called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to be on the right-hand side, about a third of the way down. Right? It's going to have screenshots for the various manufacturers, the proper syntax for that URL, and usually a couple settings just to double check. And then, assuming that there's nothing else wrong, the phone should turn green once it's rebooted a couple times. Right, cell phone and landline, they're basically the same. You give it a name, right? Angela's phone. And then you put +1 area code and phone number. You click on Create Device. Now, once a cell phone is created, if we go here under Advanced Options, this is standard setup or default setup. So we send a call to the cell phone. It will ring. when the person picks up, they're going to hear, or when you pick up, let's say we're sending it to your cell phone, right? You're going to hear, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1, right? When you press 1, you tell the system, yes, you are there, and yes, you want to take the call, right? It then connects the other call, the inbound caller to you. You can talk, right? Which is great if it's actually you're sending calls to your cell phone. If, however, you added a cell phone device, but you're actually sending calls to, say, an automated answering service, right, that you want to use for your after hours, well, that automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1. In fact, it probably cannot. So what you would want to do is come here under the advanced options and click a check mark here in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So now when we send the call to this number, right, the phone will ring. We hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? There's no message about having to press 1. We don't even wait for it. We just say pickup, call connected. So if you have this setting set up on your actual cell phone, right, and you're not able to pick up the call, but your cell phone voicemail picks up, we treat that like a connected call, so that inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that. Some people definitely do not. That part is a preference, but you would need it for an automated answering service. The other thing that sometimes comes up is this one here, keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calls into the system, gets out to you, and we're sending the call to your cell phone. On your cell phone, you see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it, you let it go to voicemail because you've had too many robodialers today, right? Or you're driving, what have you. Now, if you uncheck this, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, you would see your main company number. Right, so if we go back to the dashboard page, right, whatever this 323 phone number, that's what would show up on your cell phone's display. So that way you would know, oh, this is a work call. So if it's safe and you're able to, you can pick it up. Right, soft phone. Now, you should read this message here. And here you get to the adding a soft phone page. Now, this is allowing you to add a third-party soft phone. Right, on the devices page, this is the only kind of soft phone you can add. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you need to add that on the user, which we'll get to shortly. But you would give it a name. Then let's say you're using Xlite from Counterpath or Zoiper, right? You would copy and paste the SIP username, click on the SIP password box, so then you can copy and paste the SIP password, and then you need to copy and paste the realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to program that third-party soft phone application. Right? Then you click on Create Device, and then you can just add it to a user. The other thing, you can click here on the little wrench icon. Right? You can always change a device's name. Actually, this is probably not the best device to choose. Right, audio, you can check the codecs. Opus is what we typically use for the VirtualPBX soft phone app. For most physical devices, you want G711A and G711U. But here you can adjust what the outbound caller ID is for that particular device and also the emergency information, right, the E911. Greetings tab, or Greetings Manager, right, shows all your greetings on your account. Right, so your main greetings, your voicemail greetings, your hold music. You can add a file here. Just give it a name, find the file on your computer. Right, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, and then click on Create Greeting, and it will upload it here. For any greeting that's already here, you've got the name of the file. You have the source, right? So TTS, text to speech. Upload, you uploaded it. And recording, right, means you was recorded over the phone. You can excuse me. You can download these files so you can listen to them, make sure they're still relevant. And then you can also click on the little wrench icon here so you can change the name of the file to something you can recognize easily, or you can just delete the file if it's no longer relevant. Groups, this is short for ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments, essentially. If you click on add group at the top, you give it a name, you give it an extension number, and then you click and drag, to add your staff members to it, and then you click on create group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. You can change the name if you're so inclined. You can also adjust the group call attempts, right? Those little arrows here to the right. So you can increase or decrease that as necessary. But this is how many times the system will offer calls to your users that are part of the group. Click on Save Changes. Next, we click on the Members box. And you see my members that are here, right, that are added. I can add additional people down here at the bottom. And click Select. Now, at this point, Michael and Giovanni here will ring roughly the same time. Up here along the top, right, these are timestamps. You can edit this last one here. It defaults to 120 seconds. I have this distribute button. So now that Giovanni's been added, I can click distribute again. So now it equalizes out over time and Giovanni's at the end. Now these are sliders. All right, so oops. All right, I can adjust. I don't have to do it like that too. I can do weird things like that if I want to. But if I want to do blast ringing or ring all, right, I would do something like this. Right, so now it rings everybody at once for the whole duration until someone picks up. Now, for your group members, they can answer calls with a cell phone, a landline, or a VoIP phone, right? The group calls doesn't care. However, it's going to ring all their devices, right? So let's say Michael has 4 devices. When a call is offered to him from the group, it's going to ring all of them, right? There's a user feature called Follow Me Calling. Calls from the group ignore that feature. Just rings all his devices, right? Obviously until he picks up. Also, let's say Michael's on a call, right? On a group call, and another group call comes in. He's going to hear a call waiting beep on his phone if it's enabled on that device, right? So if his cell phone, for example, has call waiting enabled, he will hear a call waiting beep from the group call unless he turns off call waiting on his cell phone. And up until someone, a second staff member picks up that call. Now I can change the order. Let's say I want Giovanni to be first, Michael's down here. And then I'm like, okay, right now I still haven't changed the order until I click distribute again. Right now Giovanni's first, then Jan, etc. Right, those are your routing options for the group. Groups can have extensions. They can have multiple extensions if you want them to. They can also have phone numbers like I have up here. One thing to keep in mind is that phone numbers that are not on your main number or your auto attendant areas, right? Those phone numbers do not, right? So your main number and your auto attendant numbers, those have hours of operation and holidays, right? My group numbers, they do not have hours of operation or holidays. So they're open 24/7. And yes, groups can have multiple phone numbers. You have group features. So first is ring back. So call comes into the ring group, right? We then offer it out to your staff members, right? Their staff member phones ring. That ringing sound is then piped back to your inbound caller, right? So they know, hey, call is ringing. If you don't want that sound to be piped back to your inbound callers, you can replace it with ring back, right? You just click enabled, and then you upload an MP3, OGG, or .wav file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. So now when the call comes in, we offer it to your first staff member. We get that ringing sound coming back to us, and then we replace it with the media file. Now, if for some reason your staff member's phone doesn't return that ringing sound, the system does not play anything, right? Because there's nothing to replace. That's a very rare occurrence. Next action this is if no one answers, what do you want the system to do with the call? You have a pull down here. You can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to one of your secondary attendants that's available in main menu. You can send it to a call queue if you have them. You can send it to a specific phone. Scroll down. We can send it to another group. We can send it to a specific person, right? So one of my other users. Or I can send it to a voicemail box. And then click on Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means my users can make use of call forwarding, right? So they're not going to be at their normal phone. They can send calls to a secondary device. And then caller ID prepend, if this is enabled. Now you can have additional text show up on your staff members' VoIP phones so they know what the call is about. Numbers takes you to your numbers in use by default, right? So this shows you where your numbers are going, right? You can't unassign them here or anything like that, but you at least know where they are. You can always click on the gear icon to update caller ID, E911, etc. Spare numbers, these are my extra numbers that I'm not currently using. Now, if I want to reduce my phone bill, I can do that by clicking on the box in front of these, and now I have the option to delete. So let's also we'll get rid of those. And then we'll click on delete. It says, are you sure? I confirm the deletion. And it says all of them have been removed. And now I have a much shorter list here. So now I just save money on my monthly bill. Notice up here, I can buy numbers, right? Local or toll free. So if I can, then they would just add them here to my spare number list. You can also port a number, right? This begins the port process. And that just means you're moving a number from one carrier to another, right? So from AT&T to VirtualPBX. You give it a name, you choose local or toll free, you click next. Now it wants a PDF of your phone bill. It will then ask you for the address associated with it and then your phone numbers that you want to port. You'll have the opportunity to download a blank letter of agency or LOA and then upload a completed and signed LOA. There's 4 checkboxes it wants you to confirm, essentially saying that, hey, you're not going to close either account until the port completes, among a couple other things. And then you click on submit, which will upload the documents. Once you click submit, or once the submission completes, you'll get an email saying, hey, you submitted a port request. You should get a second email by the next business day from our porting team. That means that an actual person has looked at your port request and submitted it, right? So it's actually fully in process at that time. If for some reason you don't get either of those emails, you can always email the documentation to porting@virtualpbx.com, right? So completed and signed LOA, copy of your bill. They can still process the port that way. You don't have to do it through the portal here. Porting of phone numbers, local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. Toll-free numbers typically 3 to 5 business days, assuming everything is correct. If we get an error, right, a rejection, it's not always very specific, right? Sometimes it'll say, hey, the street address is wrong. Other times it will just say address mismatch, right? So whatever information we get along those lines, we pass on to you. Now, we do double check to make sure there wasn't a typo anywhere on our side, that we somehow contributed to. But assuming everything that we submitted matches what is on your LOA, it's like, well, then we have to go to you saying, what should it be? That obviously will delay when your port completes. The LOA, right, it asks for company information like address, business name, and a signature, right? So the address and the business name, that should match what, in this case, AT&T has on file for you, right? It does need a signature. It can be a digital signature. You could print it out, sign it manually, and then scan it back in. But if you just type in your name twice, that will get rejected. All right, users, shows all your users on the account. Little gray person is a standard user. Person with the blue suit, system admin. Up here at the top is where you add new users and you fill out the form, right? First name, last name, pretty easy. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse email addresses. Then you create a password for them, and then you can select an extension number for them. Now, this system started off with extension 1000, so it's suggesting 1018. I don't have to do that. Right, I can do 8337, right? Or 8397, excuse me. Whatever I want it to be. Now, by default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user, right? That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, let's say I created this user, I added a Yealink phone, and the phone got registered right away. I can tell the user, hey, pick up that phone, dial *98, click call. Right? The system will automatically, that's a feature code that logs that user directly into the voicemail box that we just created for them. The system will then prompt them to enter a PIN number, right? So to create their PIN number for their voicemail box, and then walk them through recording their voicemail greeting. All right. Include the user in the user directory or the company directory. You can change your mind on that later if you want to. Here we have to send emails to an alternate address. Now, by default, any emails that the system would send to the user would go to the email address used for login, right? So password resets, voicemail notifications, right? If for some reason you as an admin or the user do not want those emails to go to the email that they used to log in with, but rather, let's say, their personal email, that's when you would use send to an alternate address and then enter that different email address here. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I personally would do this, put a check mark here. So that way the user gets their email, in their email, the username and password to log into dash.virtualpbx.com. If you only need to create one user, just click on create user. If you need to add multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. You can change their name. You can change their credentials here, right? So you can change their email address or their password. You can also have the option here to resend them the password reset email, right? So they can create their own password if they complain about that password you create for them. Here you can change their voicemail box PIN number, which is what you would probably need to do for your cell phone or landline users, right? Your VoIP phone users can do this themselves. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory. Over here on the right, this pull down, you can change a user to be an admin or an admin to be a user. Here is the time zone, right? You can just do a search, put in the correct time zone, so that way their voicemail timestamps are correct, for example. The little flag icon here is for the display language, English, French, German, or Russian, and that's just what the web pages will appear for that user. Ringing timeout, measured in seconds, the default is 20. Now, for this user, it's grayed out because he has the user feature follow me enabled. Right, so if we go to Cody here, right, you see here, his ringing timeout is not grayed out, and I can adjust it if necessary. 20 seconds, plenty of time to send calls to a landline or a VoIP phone. Cell phone, it might be problematic. You might need to up this to 30 or 40 seconds. You can click on the extension box for a user, right? So they can have multiple extensions. You can assign a new one and then unassign the original. Users can have their own phone numbers if you want them to. But again, that phone number is open 24/7. Devices, right? So you can add devices directly to a user. Now, let me see if I can. Oh, here we go. So these are basically all the same as we saw on the devices page, except for the soft phone. So soft phone still gives you that warning message. But now on this page right down here at the bottom, we have this new thing shows up here. So it starts off saying use third-party application. If we click on that, it now says use VirtualPBX application. So this is what you want to do if you want to use the VirtualPBX softphone. And then you just need to give it a name. And then you click on create device. And then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, John here would get an email with his login credentials for the softphone, as well as download links to download the app. So you download the app, use those credentials to log in, and then the device would turn green. The other thing I find easier to add on a user directly is the web phone. The web phone, you do have to log in to use it. It just uses your dash login information. So it just makes sense to add it directly to a user, so that way you automatically associate the login credentials for the web phone or that user. All right, user features. Actually, let's go back up here to Aaron. All right, caller ID number. You can only enable this on users with their own phone number. And what this means is when Aaron makes an outbound call from his VoIP phone, this phone number here is what shows up on his outbound caller ID. Right? If I turn this off, now whenever Aaron makes an outbound call, it's going to be his the main company number. Right? Let's go back to dashboard. By default, anyway, it's going to be this number here that shows up when Aaron makes an outbound call. Call forwarding. Your users can turn call forwarding on themselves via the user portal, also with feature codes. As an admin, you could set up failover mode. What this means is if their VoIP phone on the user becomes unregistered and a call comes into the user at that time, under failover mode, the system will automatically send the call to the phone number you designated. Right, so that way no one's missing a call, right? They can still answer the call, and then they can go back and find out why their VoIP phone is no longer working. Hot desking is a VoIP feature, and usually used, like say in like hybrid scheduling or shared office space. Basically, where people may be sitting at different VoIP phones or different desks from day to day. Right, so Aaron comes in on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the handset, dials *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. The system asks him for his hot desk ID, and then calls to his user will now show up a call or ring on the phone he's sitting at. Right, end of his day, he picks up the phone, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. The next time he rolls into the office, let's say that's Thursday, right? Someone's already sitting at desk number 2. That happens, he moves on. He sits down at desk number 10. Same thing, picks up the handset, dial *11, enter his hot desk ID, and now he can answer calls at desk number 10. Voicemail, or voicemail box, this is what we enabled right when we created the user. Transcription is actually a plan-specific feature. Basically, the system listens to your voicemail and tries to type it out in the email notification. It does the best that it can. Right? If there's a lot of background noise or people aren't speaking clearly into their microphones, it may have trouble. Voicemail to email is automatically just enabled and attach email to the message. Right? So basically, user gets a voicemail, they get an email. And by default, they're going to get an MP3 attachment that they can double click on and listen to the voicemail message. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, the voicemail box is full. It will not accept any new messages. Now, if your staff is good about going back through and deleting messages, that's not a worry. If someone is not, you can always choose this option here, which is to delete the message from the system after the notification email is sent out. If you do this, this means the only way that person can check their voicemail messages is via their email. Right? If you have this disabled, right, or standard, right, then Aaron can call in and listen to his voicemails over the phone. He can see and listen to his voicemails on his user portal, as well as get them via email. Faxbox, users can have their own Faxbox if you want them to. I recommend if you do this that you add a spare phone number, right? Either a spare number or buy a new number. Right? This one is set up with an extension number, which means Aaron can only receive a fax. He can never send them out. Right? So person faxing has to call your main number. When they hear the greeting, they have to enter 399, and then they have to click start fax on their fax machine. Right? Now, some fax machines, they can enter the main number and like comma, comma, or pound, pound for a pause, and then the extension number, and it will do it automatically. You might run into trouble with people using electronic fax services, right, or email to fax services. They may not have the ability to send faxes to an extension. And then, as I said, Aaron himself, he will not be able to send a fax out because the system will use his fax box information as and specifically his extension number and use it for his outbound caller ID. Well, outbound caller ID needs to be 10 digits. A 3-digit extension isn't long enough, so it will fail. Conference bridge. When you enable the conference, the only thing as an admin you would need to do is create a PIN number for them and then click on Save Changes. Your staff members can then go to their user portal and adjust their PIN numbers there. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. So actually, Aaron isn't the best case for this. So let's disable that. So we'll go here. So when you enable it, it looks like this. You need to tell the system what devices you want to make use of. So you uncheck everything you want to use. And then they have the little green line, right? So you can click and drag. Right, so now they ring at least for some amount of time. You have the timestamp up here too, so you can adjust it. Right, I can click distribute, so just like a ring group. Right, that means I can also click and drag and then click redistribute again. So now it's working on my soft phone, my web phone, and then my cell phone. Right, and then after this last one, it would go to voicemail. Music on hold. Users can have their own hold music if you want them to. You just upload .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, and then click on Save Changes. Right, this would supersede the hold music at the dashboard page. Customized call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this. Right? So you need to tell the system what kind of calls do you want recorded. Inbound internal coworker call. Right? Someone else on the dash system is calling me. Inbound external customer call. Right? Customer calls into the system, reaches my user, record that call. Right? Outbound internal means I'm calling a coworker, someone else on my dash account. Right? Outbound external means I'm calling a coworker or calling a customer back. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, every account includes some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. To verify how much you have and what the overages are for your plan, you need to talk to our account services team, and they can get that information for you. If you have a lot of call volume and you intend to record every call, you may want to look at using AWS, right, Amazon Web Services for storage purposes. You can link your AWS account to your Dash account and have the call recording stored with AWS. Voicemail boxes shows your voicemail boxes on the account. The ones with their name here means that's a user-created voicemail box, right? So it was created at the same time the user was. Otherwise, it was created up here at the top, right? You give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Click on Create Voicemail Box. Then you can click on the little wrench icon under Edit. You can always change this information later, right? Or delete the voicemail box if you're not using it. If you go under Advanced, Greeting Media, here you can upload a greeting file, right? Directly to the voicemail box, right? With the basic settings, you have the voicemail box number and PIN number, so you can record it over the phone, right? This is a pull down, so you can choose a file that's already on the account. So if you have like a generic message that you just have your voicemail boxes used for announcing that, hey, you've reached a voicemail, leave a message. You can then select it here. The temporary file, this is for the out of office or vacation message. So if you have something selected under temporary, it's going to play, right? Even if you have something under media, right? The media file won't play if there's something selected under temporary. Once you select temporary back to none, then the media file will play. Recipients. Now, your user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. This voicemail box was created manually, so I would click here and add a new email address, right? You can have multiple, obviously. If I just need to add one, I just put the email address here, and then I click on Save Changes. If I need to add multiple, I put email address here and click Add, and then enter the next email address. So once you have a media file in place and your recipient in place, you can go under these advanced options. You can click on the box in front of Already Set Up, and then up to you if you want to do the delete after notification as well. Advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access is. And that allows you to call in with a cell phone or landline, log into the system, and then make an outbound call. When you make that outbound call, it's not your cell phone number that's displayed, it's your main company number. So now, direct inward system access is not immediately available for new accounts. That is something you'd have to talk to our account services team to get enabled. But once it's enabled, then you can enable it here, and it automatically assigns you a PIN number. Now, I recommend you click Edit Settings, and then you add an extension number, and you use an extension number that's not part of your normal sequence. Right, so this account started with extension 1000, so I'm saying, hey, my DIS extension is 7359, right? Then I click Save Changes. So now I can call my main number that rings to the virtual receptionist. I enter in this extension number. It will then the system will prompt me to enter the PIN number. Then I'll hear dial tone, right? I then enter area code and phone number, and then I'll hear the sound of the call ringing out to someone. And instead of my cell phone number showing up, right, it's going to be this 323 phone number that we have set up here on the dashboard. Now, if you don't have an extension number assigned, then you would need to set this up as a menu option. I strongly discourage you doing that because someone can figure out pretty quickly what menu option gets to a prompt asking for a PIN number, and these bad actor types probably will not have a lot of difficulty figuring out that PIN number, right? Once they do that, they can start making outbound calls on your account, and you may not know about it until you get a bill. One way you might be able to know about that is via the call logs. The call logs here, you see, I have a yellow arrow out here. That's an outbound call. But I can click on it, I get more details, and I see, oh, right, this came from a soft phone or web phone. So it was a legit outbound call. Right, this green arrow to the right, that's an inbound call. And I can see that it looks like they just got to the auto attendant. And that's just the calls for today, right? And I can download this as a CSV file. I can go further back for the whole week. Right, you see this call here got to this particular device, but the person didn't answer. Right, normal clearing is typically what you want to see on a call because that means as far as the system is concerned, the call ended normally. But you can click on more details just to see what else is going on. The little fire hydrant icon here, this reports the call. It creates an email for you to send it to support@virtualpbx.com, and that email will include the technical details of the call. I would encourage you to add information into that email, like what you experienced, if you had bad call quality, or your phone didn't ring, or what have you. So that way our support team will know what the actual issue is. Right, you can go back this month. You can do custom, right? So you can do your own date range. The system will let you go back up to 1 year, 12 months. After that, our engineering team can go back an additional 6 months, so back up to 18 months. But after that, we cannot recover the data. It's just gone. So if you need call log data for compliance reasons, I'd recommend you do so every month. That way you don't have to worry about missing any days. Feature codes, I've mentioned a couple of these. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their phone. This information is here. It's also on the web phone page. It's also on the support pages, right? There's a document called feature codes. There's also a document on our support pages called the phone commands cheat sheet, which will have a brief explanation of how to use these. All right, that's all been the dashboard. Next up, we have Blacklists. This is an included feature, and this allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. So I clicked on Edit Blacklist, and you can add a new one, right? So you give it a name, and then you choose if you're going to block anonymous numbers or not, right? That means if we don't get valid inbound caller ID, if you turn this on, they're not getting through. Beyond that, you just click on here. Let's go to here. You would just click Add Number, put +1 area code and phone number. No dashes, no parentheses, no spaces, just +1 area code and number. And then you click Add, and you keep clicking Add until you're done with phone numbers to add. Once you're done, you click on Save here. You go back to Settings, and you make sure your list is over here on the right under Selected, right? So you might have to click and drag it over. Then you click Update, and then you're done. So now any phone number on these two lists, when they try to call one of my phone numbers, they get a busy tone, right? They're not getting through. All right, call recording. This will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. It just uses your Dash login, and you can see your call recordings there. You can listen to them, download them, delete them. If you've linked your account to AWS, then when you click on call recordings, it will take you, and I'll actually change it to the recording manager, and then you can see the AWS link and manipulate your recordings there. The monitor is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to view the status of your staff. It doesn't matter what phone they're using, right? So if Giovanni here was on a call, I would see that he'd be blue, and I would also, he'd have an expanded box showing me the phone number that called into him and what device he's using or talking on, right? His soft phone, his Yealink phone, what have you. I can see who's available. I could see who's busy. I could also specify by device. Over here, on the new or on active inbound calls, I would see who's on an inbound call, what device they're using, and the number. For parked calls, if there's an actual parking call, I'd also see the parking spot number. Reports, this actually takes you to advanced reporting. Reports.virtualpbx.com. That is a plan-specific feature. Unfortunately, it doesn't properly show up here when I click on the link. But on our YouTube channel, we do have a YouTube demo video. Just go under videos, and you're looking for the advanced reporting demo. This essentially allows you to create your own reports so you have a better idea of what's going on with the call activity on your account. Voicemails, this takes you to the voicemail manager. Basically, as an admin, this allows you to get to any voicemail box on the account. And you can see the voicemail messages they have. You can listen to them. You can download them, right? You see the date, the time. If you click on the box in front of it, as an admin, you can move it to a different voicemail box, right? If it's the wrong person, and you can also change its status, right? So you can get rid of messages if the voicemail box is full. Integration AWS, this would be if you're linked your account to Amazon Web Services. Acdqs, this is a upgrade to existing plans. There are two kinds of Acdqs. So what you see here are the standard Acdqs, right? ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution, in case I didn't say that. We also have Acdqs Pro. Now an account can only have one or the other, so I can only show you one type. So this is the standard. If you want to see a demo of the Pro queues, again, on our YouTube channel under videos, there's an Acdqs Pro demo. You may need to upgrade your plan and then upgrade or add on queues on top of that. So that's something you'd want to talk to our account services team about, especially because they would have the current pricing for the queues. Queues are essentially an advanced form of ring groups, right? So ring groups, right? You could ring everybody, you can ring in order, right? And the groups have the advantage of you can use cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. Queues, you can only use a VoIP phone. But you have different routing strategies available to you. And probably as important, your staff members have some control over when they're getting calls in the queue, whereas in a group, they're always in the group. Doesn't matter. They can't take themselves out unless they're a system admin. Okay, so once you add a queue, we'll just click on the gear icon here. You need to give it a name, and then you choose, can a queue have a phone number or an extension? Right, can have one or the other, not both. Right, then you've got the queue routing strategy. Unfortunately, the pull down doesn't work, but you have, on the standard queues, you have ring all, you have round robin, which will equalize out over time. Most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call. Least calls, which is least amount of connected calls. And then least offers, which is a combination of connected and missed calls. The Pro queues have that same options, except for they do not have ring all. All right, then we've got hold treatment, which means you can upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg. The Pro queues, you can have multiple media files play. You can also announce like position in line and their expected wait time. Queue timeout measured in seconds, how long the inbound caller can wait on hold. All right. Queue call limit, you can limit the number of people who are waiting on hold. Right? If you put this at 0, that means there's no limit. Right now I'm saying, hey, I can only have 4 people waiting on hold. That's on top of my staff members who might be already on a call. Queue timeout immediately empty. If you enable this, this means if you have no staff members logged into a queue, and a call comes into that queue, the system will treat it as if that call has already hit 3,600 seconds. The escalation call flow after timeout is after that 3,600 seconds, where do you want to send the call? Right. You can send it to groups, queues, back to your main menu, etc. The zero out call flow, if you enable this, right, by selecting something, you're allowing your inbound caller to press 0, and then this pull down is where they're going when they press 0. Agent behavior, agent recovery time measured in seconds, usually somewhere between 0 and 30. And that means it's after an agent has finished a call. In this case, the system will wait 15 seconds before it offers them another call from the queue. So they have time for like a sip of water or to finish their notes. Force away on reject or missed. If you enable this, that means if an agent misses a call, they're put in away mode until they put themselves back in ready. Agent connect timeout, measured in seconds. 20 is the default, and that's typically plenty of time since we're setting calls to a VoIP device. And then you click on create queue, or in this case, save changes. Once you have queues created, you want to click over here on the members icon. right? Little person with the headset. This list of people are the people who are available to be in my queues, right? Meaning I've assigned them to be available in my queues. They may not be in queues yet. They're just available to be. If I click on Manage Members, now I have two lists. The list on the left is my other staff members, right? So they're not currently available to be in a queue, right? So they can't access them. If I click on their name and click on Add as a Member, then you see Mike got moved over here to the right down here. Likewise, I can click and remove someone. And that just, again, that just means they're not available to be part of my queues. I click back here to go back to the queue list. I click on a queue. I can click on agents here, right? And then I can add available agents to a specific queue if I want them to be in the queue. Once you have agents added, you can choose to have an agent become a manager. So for instance, I can move Taylor over here. All right, so for your staff members, right, they can log into dash.virtualpbx.com, click on the menu icon, and once you've added them to the queues, right, they'll have Acdqs as a link, and that will take them here. They then click on Begin Session, and that logs them in. Now, especially that first time logging in, or any time they have a change on their VoIP phones, they want to click on the little phone icon here and make sure they select a device. Click on the phone icon again, and then they can mark themselves as ready. So now green, right, means I'm ready to take a call. Right, red means I've marked away. Light blue means I'm being offered a call. Right, dark blue means I'm on a connected call, right, or on a queue call. Yellow will mean I'm on an external call. So a call came directly to my extension, or I made an outbound call, right? But basically a call that did not come from the queue. And then gold would be I'm on wrap-up time. For Acdqs Pro, one of the major advantages is that managers can eavesdrop, whisper, or barge into a call, whereas that's not something that's available under the standard queues. Right. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change your outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. So I'll click on this one here. This one is pretty easy. I'm just saying, whenever my VoIP phone users dial a 408 phone number, change their outbound caller ID to match this 408 phone number, right? So it looks like a local call. I can also create a feature code, right? In this case, my staff members would need to dial *550 on their VoIP phone, then enter the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. The system will see that and change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Faxes, the fax manager, it's actually on all plans. You can take a look at your inbound faxes. This would be on top of the email notification. Right, you can download the fax, you can see the date, the time, etc. We go to outbound faxes. Here you can see successful faxes as well as a failed one. You click on the little last icon here. This might tell you additional reasons why the fax failed. In this case, not a whole lot of extra information, just that it did not succeed. So when you see a failure under outbound faxes, that means we had a problem communicating with the other fax machine, right? Maybe it was the line was busy. Maybe we did connect and then something interrupted the signal, right? Someone picked up the handset on the other end. We don't know. And sometimes that little last icon here, details icon, can give us that extra information. Email to fax logs, if you see information here, that means the system had a problem with the fax request. Now, that could be a problem with the email address. It can be a problem with the format of the to field. Or if you click on the eyeball icon here, you can see here, error is no valid attachment. That means it wasn't a PDF or TIFF file. Could be no file, right? In some cases, actually, I think it's here, right? The system had a problem converting the PDF file. Now, that tends to be there's some quirkiness with PDF. So there's a difference between if a file is saved as a PDF versus exported as PDF versus downloaded as PDF, depending on the application you're using. So you may need to try different ways of saving your file. Sometimes even just resaving the file is enough to clear out that conversion error. Number Manager, this will take you back to your numbers page. Webhooks, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software. So for instance, Zapier. If you're interested in that, you'd actually want to check on our YouTube channel. We have a introduction to Zapier webinar on the YouTube channel that makes use of webhooks and Zapier specifically. But basically, it's coding, right? So you can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample of what we've done in terms of linking Dash to other software. But you do need to have something on the other end, right? So you click New Hook, you basically fill out what you need here, and then something on the other end to latch onto. Right? That's where like Zapier would come in, or AutoCode, etc. So for more information on that, you'd actually need to talk to our sales team. But I would also encourage you to take a look at developer.virtualpbx.com. This is an advanced feature, right? So, or at least in terms of compared to most of our customers, most of them don't get into programming. So something to be aware of. User portal. Every user has their own user portal, right? As an admin, you can only access your own user portal, but you can get to everything, right, via other ways. So here I can see my voicemails, right? And now, if you set up a voicemail box to delete the notifications on the voicemail box, then nothing would be here, right? So something to be aware of. You can play back the message, download it. You can choose to mark it for deletion, etc. Users can go to the call history tab to see their call history. They can change the dates. And change filter, and then they can see their call history there. Faxes basically only shows up if they have their own fax box. The contact list shows your Dash account, essentially, right? The other users, the groups, the queues, the auto attendants, etc. Basically, so people know where to transfer to, as well as feature codes. Conference tab, right? So here is where your users can adjust their PIN numbers, and as well as our participants starting off muted, deafened, play entry and exit tones. While you're in a conference, right, they can be on this page. They can invite other Dash users to their conference. They can lock a conference so other people can't jump in, mute everybody, unmute everybody, hang up the call, right, end the conference. When you're also in a conference, you can mute a specific participant as well as kick out a particular participant. The Settings and Devices tab, this is where your users would enable their own call forwarding. Just click on the enable box, put +1 area code and phone number, click on save, and now calls are being forwarded to that device. This device, right, that I'm forwarding to should not be a device already on the user. And that is everything. And I don't see any questions in chat. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream for today. I thank you for your time today. And we'll be back again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific.